Welcome back to Greels Reels, everyone. I'm your host, Robert Greeley, and today we have St. Mary's Husky alumnus. I love it. A guy who went to the East Coast. I'm always a fan of that. Nigel Romick, how's it going, man?
It's going well. Appreciate you having me. And hop in my podcast cherry right now.
Hey, you know what? I'm honored, and I even got a little too credit in that intro with the just the East Coast mention. It always fires me up, but there's so much on the resume to unpack. Obviously, Grey Cup champion, CFL draft pick. Like the resume is extensive, man. But thanks again for hopping on. I want to, really start right from the get-go. Thunder Bay native. I mean, I've never been disappointed when I meet somebody from Thunder Bay. Great people out there, but yeah, man.
It's the same as every time I meet someone from the East Coast. Like, I love people from the East Coast, love people from Newfoundland, great people. Thunder Bay to Halifax to Ottawa. Like, it's pretty crazy. Someone from Thunder Bay, come in to Ottawa playing CFL football. So it's been a ride. Yeah.
I know you guys got a good hockey reputation out there. I mean, obviously you got the Stahl brothers and some alumni like that. But there's not much in. Is there a football alumni like that?
No, there's not many football players from Thunder Bay. There's been a couple back in the day that would play in the CFL for a couple of years, but no, they're not on the map for football. It's more hockey, especially the Stahl brothers right now. I keep on seeing them in the headlines with, I saw the Stahl brothers. I think they had 1,800 points combined. I think Eric had 1,000 games lately, so it's pretty amazing, those guys.
They're a little older than you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So were they like role models growing up, or?
We had the same trainer back in the day. I never saw them because we had different schedules, but I was like, oh wow, we have the same trainer. These guys are in the NHL. It's awesome, but at that time when I realized who the Stahls were, I wasn't playing hockey. I played hockey back in the day for 3 years, I would say, and I got switched into football. So,
is that just? I'm assuming just because of your size.
My size and my parents, I was playing so many sports at once, soccer, hockey and everything. And so with my siblings' schedules, it was just too much. Like, okay, you got to pick one sport. So, I picked soccer, obviously, that move. I played soccer for a couple more years competitively and then stopped that. And then I picked up football in grade 10.
Hey, were you a fullback in soccer, like defense or maybe even a goalie?
No, I was forward, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, soccer was the thing growing up. My siblings and I. So,
what went into the decision of that positional move there? Because that surprised me. I figured they would have just had you, back there shutting everything down.
I don't know. I would say it was speed back in the day. I was faster than everyone, so they used to just pass me the ball, and then I would go up the sides, and there you go.
Yeah, fair enough. Now that I think about it, I got put back on defense mainly in soccer because I was just way too slow.
Just chilling, waiting for everything.
Yeah, a decent boot, so just kind of switch the field in a way, but just
there you go. Watching everything play out.
And hey, for some reason, I was just a magnet to the ball. So whenever it didn't matter, I could be 20 feet away from that. Somebody would just wail on it. And next thing I know, I blocked it. I don't know how half the time, but it would just happen. So is that, I guess, the childhood for you, just constant sport, like bunch of different activities as much as you possibly can?
Yeah, it was constantly everything. If you wanted to play a sport or mention it, our parents would put us in there. So, we started off gymnastics. So gymnastics and then soccer and then hockey. We played volleyball, like absolutely everything. We're biking, we're doing everything. So
did you guys in Thunder Bay have like a niche sport? Because like randomly, like my hometown, like a niche sport that you guys were dominant in, because randomly my hometown absolutely dominant in volleyball, like just pretty much undefeated seasons, like not even close.
I wouldn't say any sport particularly. There was a lot of good soccer players from Thunder Bay that went NCAA. There's a lot of hockey players, obviously. Some football players, not many, but no, I wouldn't really say one sport.
Yeah. So when you're getting ready to, kind of make that transition and make that step up, like when did you realize you were good enough for the university level?
I think it was grade. I think it was grade 11, or I think I might even started grade 12.
Hmm.
There was a bunch of different head coaches from schools coming down to Thunder Bay to recruit kids. So they would show up at our practices. They would chat with us, and I remember St. Mary's. This older man. It was like the weirdest story ever. How we got recruited to St. Mary's. It was one of my best friends, Brian, and I. We went down there together, and I guess he was there for a wedding, and he heard whistles, and he's like, "Oh, there's football." Blah, blah. So he went over, watched a couple of games, and he saw us. So he reported back to Steve Samara. He was the head coach at St. Mary's, and he's at Carleton now. And he's like, "Yeah, I have some guys." So he took us out for lunch, and we were driving to Subway, and I honestly thought we were gonna die. He was driving, talking to us, and I'm like so young. I'm just like, "Oh my god, this guy's gonna get in an accident." So he took us to lunch, and I'm like, "God, this is really cool." We're getting treated very well. We went to Subway. It was nothing extreme. Like we went to Subway, and yeah, and then we ended up going down to St. Mary's for a recruiting trip, and it was my first recruiting trip. And I signed my letter of intent like right after it. I should have waited. Obviously, went to a bunch of different schools, but it worked out. Glad I went there. Glad I experienced everything. So yeah.
So you signed the letter as soon as that was basically
like pretty much like a week after I signed it. I told my buddy, I'm like, I signed the letter. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay. So I couldn't talk to any other school or anything. So yeah, it was right there.
Do you think that was just maybe luck of the draw? Like, say if it was maybe it was a U Ottawa coach for a wedding.
Right.
Like, do you think you'd end up a Gigi in that same scenario then?
Who knows? Who knows if I would have ended up in the CFL? So
Yeah.
things worked out, which I'm happy for it. So I have no regrets, like whatsoever. Love the East Coast. I'm here now, so it turned out for the better.
Yeah. Did you at least, the wine and dine at the Subway? Did you at least make it worth it? Like you get them to really
I think I got double meat for sure.
Okay, yeah. And cookies and chips, or just?
I think I got some chips, yeah, iced tea, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That at least that's one thing,
Yeah. He's like, don't push it. I'm like, okay, all right.
Now, you mentioned you had siblings. So, like, are they older, younger? Were they kind of taking that CISU sport path too?
They're older. I'm the youngest of three. So my brother's 3 years older. My sister is 5 years older. My sister went to university at Lakehead. And then my brother, he actually went to school in Perth by Ottawa for carpentry. So they stopped playing sports younger, but I just continued with it.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I guess Lakehead doesn't have a football program either, so I guess there wasn't really much recruitment in terms of like probably following your sister's footsteps.
There, I'm off Wi-Fi, straight data right now, so I can't deal with the Wi-Fi out here.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm the same way. But so we got you back there now. And did you hear the question with like Lakehead, no football program? So I guess there wasn't much recruitment from like your sister to head out that way and follow her footsteps?
Yeah. So I couldn't stay in Thunder Bay if I wanted to play football. The closest place was Manitoba Bisons.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked to them. He came and chatted with me. Yeah, nothing came of it, obviously.
So now, when you're in grade 12, like how tall are you at this point? Like, have you grown into?
I think I was like 6'4", like almost the same size. Okay. String bean though, I was skinny. I never really started filling out until university.
Yeah. So how are you, dealing with, I guess sometimes the, being 6'4" kind of comes with maybe a little bit of uncoordination and, like you said, being smaller, but just really taller. So how are you kind of combating that to make sure that you're still performing on the field in high school enough to get recruited?
I don't know. I was blessed with being coordinated. I honestly think it's has to do with the gymnastics. My parents put me in gymnastics right away. So I think that's like what I'm gonna do to my son, put him in gymnastics right away. Because I did play sports with a lot of taller athletes and they were uncoordinated. So I don't know. I honestly feel like I'm not as tall as I think I am. I feel like I'm, 6 feet, but then I realize I am 6'5". So
Yeah, you are just making the rest of us feel really short, One of my
yeah, no,
Go ahead.
no, I've just been blessed with being coordinated, I guess. I don't know.
Hey, no, I mean, I'm 5'10" and I don't even really have the coordination, so I mean, it's funny though. Whenever I'm like working, like specifically in football mainly, because I mean, there's just so many guys, right? And in hockey, you'll
Yeah,
get the scattered 5'6", 5'9" kind of guy, right? But
yeah.
for the most part, I'm just constantly looking up, and just I'm like, man, like I am so short. And then I leave and like start walking around campus, and I'm the same height as everybody else. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's just
Yeah, those guys are absolutely massive. But you know what? I find I'm sometimes like, holy man, like you're very tall. Like some of the guys are huge.
mm-hmm.
Like their O line is massive. I
the
remember what was that?
the O-line collectively.
Yes, the O line collectively. I remember one time it was in Edmonton and I was lined up and I looked at these guys. I'm like, oh my gosh, like one guy's like 6'11". I look up at him like, you are a massive human being. And these guys are like 350. I'm just like huge. But even like in my group of friends on the Red Blacks, like all of us are like 6'5", so it's normal. I'm just looking at them, looking at their eyes. So
Yeah, no, for sure. It's definitely not a difference for you. Now, when you're going up against somebody who's 6'11", 300 pounds, like that is absolutely ridiculous. Like, how are you? Because your job is literally to get through that individual.
yeah, exactly. Back of my head, I'm just like laugh. I'm like, okay, there's no chance. But some of those guys are so tall that they have trouble bending. So you find ways around them.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess it's get low and try and beat them with speed.
Exactly, that's the whole thing.
So when you first arrived to St. Mary's, well, I guess you did the tour. You signed your letter of intent after 1 week. Probably
Yeah.
I can see
they're
the
like,
coaches.
they're like, oh god, I'm like easy. Like, damn.
I've been in the room sometimes with some of those conversations where coaches are stressing whether or not they're going to get a guy. I can just see that a whole 180 with, oh yeah, that Nigel, man, I had to take him to Subway. He didn't even mention Red Lobster.
Yeah, easy.
So you show up on campus, like I assume same kind of thing as at U Ottawa. Like you're going to get there a little bit probably at the beginning of August as opposed to September.
No, it was the end of August. So we started later in the AUS. Yeah, but same sort of thing for training camp.
Yeah, you're still there before classes start, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so how is that time to kind of get your feet wet and get adjusted to the East Coast?
So I drove down there with my buddy and his parents, and I was so nervous. Like, just 18 years old. Like, we show up to the place, and like, hey, this is beautiful. People are just. I remember we were around Peace Gardens. I'm sure you know where it is.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a crosswalk, and we went through it, and this guy's like, hey, because everyone stops on the East Coast. Like everyone's letting people go, but we're just driving, and like people are yelling at us. I'm like, what is going on? I thought everyone's nice in the East Coast, but we were in the wrong, obviously. So we went to campus. Everyone's moving in, everyone's kind of shy and everything. And then we get there onto the field, and they're doing testing, like 40-yard dash and everything. And at the time, CIS football, like you can be over 25 years old. So there were guys like 30 years old, and I'm like, grown men, like my age, playing CIS football. I'm like, these guys are grown-ups. And I was like so intimidated, like, oh my gosh. But then we started practicing and meeting people, and we started going from there.
So now when you get to campus, like you mentioned before, your time there is when you start kind of filling out and really getting into that size of like 6'4", 6'5", and putting some weight behind it too. did that happen immediately, or was there a little bit of adjustment in that rookie year?
I would say probably my second year. I started working out more with everyone. You know, you're just around a different environment, atmosphere, and everyone's in the varsity gym, everyone's working out. So you see these guys, you're like, all right, like, time to step up and actually push weight, do sprints and do all that kind of stuff. So you kind of just, it gets engraved into you. You just see what those guys are doing, and yeah, you just go from there.
So now, what was the play like? Did you find adjusting to like an actual playbook, and did you have much of that in when you were going through high school?
High school, it was like lunchtime, like maybe once or twice a week, just a lunchtime. You bring their lunch to a classroom, you just watch film for honestly like 15 minutes. Like there wasn't a lot of plays whatsoever. It was kind of just go out there and play ball. And then, yeah, university, it was an adjustment. We had a defense coordinator. He's actually, I see him all the time here in Ottawa, and he was an intense guy. He was intimidating.
Now, when you're trying to navigate everything, like how are you prioritizing? Like, okay, playbook, studies, on-field play, off-field play, like nutrition, all that stuff. Are you maybe leaning heavy to one as opposed to the other?
I'd say the first year trying to crack the actual roster, and I never did play my first year. I was always, I guess it was considered practice roster. Mm-hmm. But I never played first year, and I wanted to so bad, and I didn't. And I didn't prioritize, school or anything. I just wanted to make the roster, but I didn't. So second year, I'm like, all right, like time to step up and take this serious. And then finally did happen.
You see sometimes, whether the first year maybe doesn't go great for somebody in the university ranks, that they start looking for a transfer or maybe just a new situation and a fresh scene because of the frustration that kind of occurred through it that first year. Was that on your mind at all? And if it wasn't, like, what do you think made St. Mary's a little bit different for you where you wanted to stick there?
It wasn't on my mind at all. It's hard for, you go from high school being the stud, it's so hard for guys to transfer to the next level. And, you're a rookie and you're just another guy, you're not the stud, you're not the star player. And then same thing that happens in the CFL. I remember I first came to the CFL and that training camp, I was like considering quitting. I was like, I can't do this. I don't know. I didn't think I had it in me because I was just like getting shut down every second, left, right. I'm like, can I even play football? It was deflating. It was seriously deflating.
So what do you think was the big step? Obviously, with from first year to second year, you're a year older, you're a year stronger and whatnot. But what do you think really separated, the first year to the second year in terms of being able to get onto the field?
I just confidence, just being confident on the field and who I was and my ability, I guess. And I don't know, St. Mary's was a great fit for me. I'd never give up on something, If I'm there 100%. I'm not just going to back out. So
now, in terms of developing the confidence, is there any particular strategies that you're doing to really pick up on that and just, strive in that specific category?
Just learning from the older guys, see how they were always studying. They're always watching film. And I first got there and I'm like, I don't know how to watch film, like, what are we watching here? And you just see tendencies and you pick up on small things. And I think it's just the older guys, super nice. A lot of the older guys, they didn't put you down, and pretty grateful for those guys, and it worked out.
It's actually funny. I remember I was chatting with Ty Cranston, who's I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He's a safety for the Montreal Alouettes there now.
Okay, yeah. He went to Ottawa, right?
Yeah.
GG's?
Yeah. And I was chatting with him about watching film and stuff like that. And I mean, that's a big way that I kind of learned, was watching guys watch film and having them break it down to me. So that was how I just picked up on the game of football, because for myself, right, like, the reason why I approached the football team was to learn more about the sport, right? Because I wanted to do broadcasting. Obviously, being from Newfoundland, we didn't have football, so I didn't play it, so I didn't know it, right? And one thing that he said to me, he was like, honestly, like, which still stuck with me. I was like, wow, like he was like, man, I hate watching like NFL Sunday, like football, like the regular TV broadcast. Because he's like, it's all these like cinematic angles and different things like that. He's like, I would just rather watch it from like the film perspective, like the bleacher cam where you can just see everyone all the time.
Yeah.
And that was like, I was like, oh wow, like that is how in depth you kind of get to.
Yeah, it's different for sure. You don't see like you see a lot of things you don't see on TV.
So now, when you're watching film, what are you looking for?
I'm just watching the tendencies of those guys. What the actual if I'm watching like say uh we'll say we're at kickoff, on special teams, I'm seeing their tendencies. If one guy is lined up on one side, he possibly could, or I'll see if this one guy on the right side, if he is dropping back, and he has a tendency to slide into the or outside, they're going to run a certain play, or you just see that their same plays over and over and over because their kickoff return, you're only going to have 3 or 4 plays a game. So they switch up every game, but you see the same returns and plays pretty much and tendencies of guys.
So now, would
If
you?
that makes sense.
I understand. So the thing is now, are you trying to like, in terms of your goals? Like I've seen this with some players. They'll have different goals. Like I mean, I've seen receivers with like a list in their locker, and it's like they want 10 touchdowns, 1,600 yards, whatever it may be, right? With yourself, are you trying? Because sometimes it's like, okay, yeah, you get the sacks and the tackles and the forced fumbles and stuff like that. But there's also another like category of statistics for you guys too, where it's like you're trying to limit the run game as much as possible. Obviously, not give the quarterback a whole lot of time in the passing game. Is there a preference? Like, would you rather stop the run game or limit the run game, or would you just be like wanting to live in the backfield, I guess, and just absolutely demolishing the passing game?
Stopping the run game is kind of deflating for the offense.
Mm-hmm.
If that doesn't happen, and then they're all going to go, they're gonna pass all the time. But everyone wants to be in the backfield. Everyone wants that, big hit, that sack. But I think just overall stopping the offense, seeing them walk off with their heads down is the best feeling for a defensive player. Seeing these guys like, oh, what can we do? We can't do anything right now.
Mm-hmm. And I guess one thing in the process of like an offensive mindset, like you're always trying to get forward, right? So
Right.
you're not. It's very unlikely that the offense is going to lose yardage every single down, right? So is there like,
Yeah.
are you just in the mindset of like is there like a number you're like, hey, like I only want like let's only give them 2 yards here, like obviously kind of not verbally, like ideally I see it being as like you stop them in the backfield, but like realistically, is there like almost like a mental side where you're like, I want to hit at least like no more than this, like bend not break kind of thing?
Yeah, we had this coach that he has goals every game. We want to have under 100 yards rushing, or them to have under 100 yard rushing. And there's goals that coaches set for us, but I think a lot of guys do have personal goals that they have. Sacks, tackles. There's one thing that I love to have is no penalties. I pride myself in not being a big penalty guy because you're just hurting the team, you're hurting yourself. So I take pride in that. That's a statistic that I enjoy. 0 penalties.
Hey,
So
it's a big one.
Thing. Yeah, not a lot of people get that penalties. It does change the game so dramatically.
I've never realized it until actually like being on the sideline and even just like, obviously, hey, the big play, like I'll speak more on the offensive side of it, like a 40-yard catch when the offense wasn't rolling, but then there was a no need hold by an offensive lineman and it all comes back. Like I've just never seen something so deflating in a football game.
Oh yeah, you're like, oh, like everyone's cheering, and then all of a sudden, mouchoir, and you're like, oh, everyone just like, wow, drive all the way back, and then another 10 yards, and it's like come on, it's hard to come back from that.
Now, I know defensive linemen and offensive linemen, they love to, fight with each other, right? Like who's holding who and who's holding that. How are you?
Yeah.
Because those offensive linemen, man, they got tricks to hold that, aren't really going to get picked up for holding calls. How are you staying contained and not getting too frustrated there?
I don't know. It is frustrating. They're grabbing you. You're like, come on, refs look at you. And then you're like, they're not going to call it. There's holding on every single play. If you look at the O lineman and D line, there's a holding call every single play, but they can't call that. It's bad for TV ratings. It's bad for the whole play. I don't know. You just find a way or just to not get held.
Yeah, because
sometimes it's hard.
The only time the holding really comes out is when it more or less exteriates from inside the shoulders.
That, or you see their jerseys or your jersey just getting ripped off. That's the only time they get really called, because there is holding on every single play.
So now, how are you protecting the chest to kind of make sure that they don't get that leverage on you?
You try to get low, try to move your shoulders, use your hands, especially. Our coach, Leroy Blue, I'm sure you've met him before.
Yeah, I believe so.
Our D-line coach, yeah, the greatest coach ever, funniest guy ever too, and he's a big hands guy. He just showed us so many hand moves, and just like every time they come to grab you, you're hitting their hands off you and stuff like that, getting low too.
So now, when you're seeing an Aaron Donald training with knives in the off season, are you like, this is genius or this is nuts?
This is nuts. You send it to a bunch of buddies on Instagram. Like he's a nutcase, but he's the greatest, one of the greatest guys ever. So
yeah, is there?
Can't knock it.
When you see somebody in your position who is like, I mean, I think he is number one in terms of defensive lineman right now in the world, because he's at that NFL level.
One of them, yeah.
Yeah, like do you just like look at that and be like, man, I might have to incorporate that?
First you go how, and then you're like, okay, let me just watch this film probably, or this video like 20 times, see how he actually does it.
Mm-hmm. So is it has it incorporated at all? Has it snuck into the off-season training, or?
Not really, no. I should be watching and doing it more, but no, I haven't. Probably shouldn't.
Listen, I don't blame you. I think the risk reward is just not there. It only takes a little.
No, you see it and you're like, okay, I'm gonna try it, and then you try it and you're like, wow, that wasn't even close. You're like, I'm gonna stop. I look like an idiot.
It's like watching those, classic like highlight reels of like the best to ever do it, and like the celebrations. Then they look so good, and I'm just reflecting on my high school days where. All of a sudden you see the post game pictures of your celebration that you saw one of the best to ever do it, and you're like, oh yeah, I do not look like that. Let's
yeah, you're like oh, like skip it. Like I don't want to watch this at all.
So when you're going through St. Mary's, like who's the big rivalry? Like I was pretty fortunate to see that Ottawa Carleton one, but on the East Coast it just kind of seems like you all have to play each other so many times. Like I feel
exactly. Like, there's only four teams. Yeah. So excuse me. I say at the time it was probably Acadia. And then during the end of when I was there, it was Mount Allison. Because they did beat us at home this one game. Yeah. And then it was Acadia, and then it was Mount A.
So now when you have to play someone, twice, I mean, for the most part, like I did 4 years at U Ottawa, and I mean, there are still teams in the OUA that I have not seen our guys play. Right? But that's just not going to happen on the East Coast. Like you're seeing these people like multiple times. Like
yeah, you get sick of it. You're like, oh, these guys again. Like you play Santa Fe 3 times in a row. I'm like, come on, like. I do not. Or if you have a good game against them, you're like, awesome, these guys again. Like, this is the best. So
now, how are you controlling that roller coaster? Because I feel like it's definitely one of those things where it's just up and down, up and down. Like it's like if you go off for 3 sacks, a turnover, and like 2 TFLs, like I feel like you're like, yeah, give it to me. But
Yeah, the only thing that did help us is there was an OTA game conference. It was always against the in Montreal.
Mhm.
So we played Sherbrooke. We played I think they played Bishops when they went over. No, Bishops is actually in the AUS now.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
at the time when I was there, they weren't. So we played Sherbrooke. They came to St. Mary's. We went to Montreal twice, and that was awesome. Like that stadium, awesome stadium, packed. There might have been like 15,000 people there. So that was a nice little change. But other than that, it was very repetitive for sure.
How do those games go against like the Montreal teams? Do you guys hold your own there?
Our first game against Montreal, yes. We lost the game. I think it's like the last minute. Um, so Brett Lowther was our kicker. He's on Saskatchewan now,
Yep.
and we missed the field goal. I think it was like might have been like 50 yards. He just missed left, and we just lost the game by like 2 points. So we held our own that game for sure. Sherbrooke, same thing. We lost last minute, which is like unfortunate. And then I think my first year they played Laval. We got destroyed, like just destroyed. So that
Yeah,
was
that's
kind of
pretty much
deflating.
anybody who plays Laval.
Yeah,
Also,
I was
I
like
just
watching these guys. I'm like, these guys are grown men. Also, oh my gosh, like what?
I also love how you just threw Brett under the bus. He had forgotten
I
about the
know, I
nickname.
know. Oh hey, well if he was on Redbox, I'd give him a shout out. But hey,
Yeah, he's over on the West Coast now. Who?
yeah, exactly. You got to remind him, like, damn, Brett. No, Brett's a great guy though. He's an awesome dude.
Yeah, he's actually really fun to watch. I gotta say, in terms of just
Yeah, he puts on a show too. Yeah,
yeah.
he's fun.
But now, so with that being said, like your close games against Montreal and stuff like that, because obviously it's just this every year, right? There's this debate, when the AUS team gets to the national semifinal, if they should even be there, right? Like
Yeah,
last
I
week's
know.
guest, or a couple weeks ago, like for context, it was with a guy who just graduated from Acadia, right? So like they win the AUS, they're in that national semifinal game, and that's just like the constant debate. Like, was that still very present, like back when you were playing in St. Mary's as well? And if it was, like, how were you guys handling it? And I
It
guess,
was, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Because I remember my first year when I wasn't playing, we went to Calgary, and we were all pumped up and everything. Or everyone was pumped up,
Mhm.
and same thing. Like we just got destroyed, and everyone, even the commentators, were like saying that we weren't a strong team. Like AUS, they kept on putting the AUS just over in the East Coast. They weren't a strong conference or anything. So that kind of hurt to hear that. But there's been a lot of players coming out of AUS who played in the CFL, had great careers. So
Yeah, well, I think we're seeing it more and more too, right? Just a lot of talent out there now. The thing is too, like, are you using those Montreal games as like Montreal and Sherbrooke as like fuel to your like counter argument? Because I mean, not I can guarantee you, especially in like 2013, like the two, not a lot of people are just losing to Montreal by a field goal.
mhm. so like that did show everyone that the AUS conference is a strong conference, and you can say it or not, but AUS is a good conference.
Mm-hmm.
So
Now, are you like is that like a pretty high moral victory that like you get to have that close game against like Montreal and you just kind of hold it as like, hey, like we're representing our conference, like nobody really kind of believes in us, like we have this, like we're putting our best foot forward for the league.
mhm. Yeah, but it still sucked that we did lose. I wish we did win. So that did suck. But at the same time, I think we did leave Montreal saying, we are a strong team, and then we came back. I don't know who we played, but I think we had a very strong game against whoever we did, just because we were just like, we should have won that game. Blah, blah, blah. It was against Montreal, and I think we did show the conference that we were as strong as we were.
Mhm. So when the time with the Huskies kind of come to the end there, is it bittersweet?
Yeah, it was hard because the head coach changed. So Steve Samara, I don't know if he was fired. I don't know if he left on good, bad terms, but he left. He came to Ottawa. So he's now the head coach at Carleton. I see him here and there. He's the same, chat with them. He's always on his phone. Like, he's just the same guy. Great guy though. And it was Perry Marchese. He was the head coach. Things were different. Things weren't the same, obviously, as they never are. And I was ready, I remember my second year. I remember Ryan King. Was a long snapper in Edmonton. So I played with him for a couple of years, and then he coached me that 1 year. And he told someone, he's like, yeah, like, nah, he's just going to be playing the CFL. And they told me that, and I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't believe them. But then at the same time, I'm like, okay, maybe I am. So then it got me ready to start actually taking everything serious and taking that next step to trying to play in the CFL. So I was ready. I enjoy myself on the East Coast. I enjoy St. Mary's and everything. So, yeah.
No, for sure. So when you start making that transition, I guess you're hitting the gym, you're hitting the field. Like, what are you trying to prioritize? Where are you looking at getting yourself draft ready? Because we're filming. I mean, the draft was last night when we're filming this, right? So
yeah. So it was getting ready for I think third year. It was the East-West Shrine game. Mm-hmm. So I got picked for that. Went down to London, England with a couple of the guys and did that. There's a bunch of scouts. All the CFL scouts were there.
Wait, London, England or London, Ontario?
Sorry, London, Ontario. Sorry, yeah, London, Ontario.
I was like,
we flew all the way over. It was a big deal back then.
Yeah. I was shocked for a second. I was like, wait a second, what? Like,
just said it
like budget for that.
Yeah. So we went to London, England. We went to Western. It was hosted there, and the week went okay. I had never been so sore in my life. Like, I was like just beat up. Like, the East team, I was going against what's his name? He's on the Kansas Chiefs, Laurent.
Oh yeah.
But yeah. So he was our left tackle. So during practice, he was actually like lifting me up and throwing me on the ground. I'm like, oh my gosh, like just getting like pushed around. I'm like, oh god, like what am I doing? And so then the week went great, obviously sore, and then I played the game, did that, and then the following year, I think he got chosen for the combines. So I remember I got chosen for the combine, and we were just working out. Once I got chosen, then I'm like, okay, let's take this serious. My trainer started changing my programs to the combine actually training, and then we started hitting the field all the time. So before that, actually, I responded to the email, but I guess my email didn't go through because I remember I was in a stats lab, and I guess it was in the basement, and it didn't go through. So they didn't get my email. So they had the list out, and I wasn't on it. And people were like, did you not accept it? I'm like, no, I did. So then my agent now, he wasn't my agent at the time. He contacted the people. People said, okay, he can come. So I went to the Montreal combine. Went to the combine there. And then from there, I went to the Toronto combine.
So you got the golden ticket that they hand out, more or less. Is that
what
the
do you
same
mean by
way?
that?
Like
No, it was like the Montreal combine. So I did the combine there, and then there was three or five of us that got chosen to go to the actual big combine in Toronto.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I swear they like announced it as like the ticket to nationals like 2 years ago or whatnot. Like the goal, like
that might have been
yeah.
So
okay.
we went there.
Yeah, no, because I know sometimes they do that for numbers, I think, but then also too, like I think that's one of the things for the regional combine. Like they pick like for each one, they pick like the 3 or 4 top performers to go to.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
So was that something you were striving for?
Yeah, 100% at the time. Yeah, I was focused on that.
How'd it feel when you finally you got that?
When I went to the Montreal, I was like super nervous, obviously, and then when I got the invite to Toronto, I was like, I just did everything. I just did all my testing and everything. Everyone was nervous. I remember that in Toronto, and I wasn't nervous at all. It was the weirdest thing, but it's because I tested pretty well, obviously, to get to Toronto, and yeah, things worked out.
Because I see some there's always like different debates where like some guys if they do like more so for the NFL, if they do certain categories for the say NFL Combine, or they do it at their pro day, like sometimes they just won't do it a specific category, like vice versa, whether it's at the NFL one or the pro day. Was that like, did you do that, or did you just do all categories?
No, I did them all again.
Uh,
I was like, whatever. I'm like, why would I not do it? I'm not gonna be that guy saying, oh, I'm not gonna do the 40, or I'm not gonna bench press. In Montreal, I bench press 17, and then they're going to bench press again. A bunch of guys said no, so I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna bench press, whatever. So it's 2 days later, so and then I bench press 18, so I did better. I ran like a 5 in Montreal. I was like, what? I didn't break 5. I'm like, what the heck? I was very slow timing.
mhm.
And then I did a lot better at the Toronto Combine, the 40-yard dash. So everything everything improved on. So
Yeah.
I did it all again.
I've seen that like a lot of guys have just been surprised with their like 40 times in Montreal. I don't know if it's
It was very, very slow. I don't know if it was the turf. I don't know if it was the time or anything, but very slow. I was very not happy with that for sure.
So I guess, yeah, it is a big relief then for you when you get that second opportunity in Toronto and you get to just shave everything off.
No, exactly. I wasn't as nervous. I don't know. It's because I already did it, but yeah, I wasn't be that guy that just didn't participate in any combine events. So
Yeah, fair enough. It's always it always does seem to kind of create different chatter, right? Like as soon as a guy decides not to do a category, maybe less nowadays, but yeah.
yeah, well, when I see some people with their test results, I go to it and this is DNP for the whole thing, and I'm like, you didn't do any of the combine? Like, were you hurt or anything? But yeah, they just didn't participate in anything, which is I find strange. Especially that's the time to do it in front of everyone, all the scouts and all that. So
No, 100%. Now, when you're getting ready for the draft, like we said, the draft was last night. There, you're just kind of sitting around waiting for that magical call. We're seeing all these great moments of guys and their reactions. I mean, that long snapper from Alabama that Carolina drafted even in the NFL one a couple weeks ago, that phone call was just incredible. I don't know if you saw that one, but take me through the Nigel Romick draft story.
so there's a bunch of us that were potential draftees, and we went to our buddy Kurt's house. So I was training with him for months. We had the same trainer, great guy, still keep in contact with him. We all went to his place. There might have been 20 of us there, like friends, like some guys were playing football and some guys some of us were draftees and some of us were just friends, hanging out. And I mean, the first 2 rounds went, and we're like, okay, third round, and then my name got picked, and I saw it, and the first 2 are on TV, and then from then on, they were just on the website.
Yep.
So we were just refreshing, and then my name popped up, and then we're like, everyone's celebrating and stuff like that, and then we waited, and then another guy, Eric Black, he got drafted to Toronto, so he got drafted. Same thing, we're all celebrating. And then from then on, like no one else got picked, and it was just like we just waited. I can see these guys, and like, I feel so bad, And then once the draft was done, they didn't get drafted. We were like, okay, everyone think congrats and all that stuff, and I'm like, okay, it's time to go. Yeah, it was hard to see that, these guys put in so much time and effort, and then to see that they didn't get drafted, it sucks. I feel bad, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, too, you want to celebrate your own accomplishment that you've worked so hard for, right?
Exactly. And it was hard to be around those guys because they were in such, they were in bad moods, obviously, and I couldn't really enjoy myself at the time. But yeah.
Now, I've always kind of wondered this because even, like you said, the third round comes around, right? And you get picked up. Now, you hear, a third round draft pick, right? But there's not a lot of picks in the CFL draft, right? Like you're still going 23rd overall. Like,
yeah, exactly.
If that's in a 31 pick round in the thing, like your first round draft pick, like is there any of that? Like once it kind of settles and you get a time to reflect, does that kind of register in a little bit, or is that just something that I more or less fabricated?
Yeah, I remember some of the guys were like, what round you go in? I'm like, oh, third. They're like, oh, that's like a 90-something pick. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
no, it's all different in the CFL, Like, there's not a lot of picks, not a lot of teams, obviously, too. There's only 9 teams. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't really put much thought into that, or I didn't put thought into it, but yeah.
I guess it makes sense, right? It always, one thing too that's been pretty interesting is like sometimes you'll see just all these different picks, right? Like, you mentioned Laurent, obviously, Super Bowl champ with the Chiefs now, crazy, offensive lineman, right? And he was the number one overall scouting report for that. Like he was the first overall kind of thing, right? But obviously, guys kind of knew that he was going to have like an NFL career.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's funny when you see these top touted prospects just like drop to the third round and fourth round too, right? Because the one thing that is so unpredictable is the CFL draft. I have no idea what's going to happen.
No, I know exactly. Like even my year, when Pruno got picked first, but then it was the whole trade with Gott, with Calgary. Like there's so much going on. There's so many trades like right away. And you never really see it, or you don't know what's going to happen in the CFL draft, like you said.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you're refreshing the website page, like when do you finally get a hold of the Red Blacks, or when did the Red Blacks get a hold of you? Like, was that immediate, or was there just almost?
I think it might have been like 5 minutes later or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it was, or maybe a little shorter, but they called me right after, pretty much.
And how was that phone call? Was that with Marcel?
Who was it with? I don't remember if it was with Rick Campbell or if it was with Mark Nelson. He was a defensive coordinator at the time, but it was one of those two.
Okay. And are you just like
it was short, If it was with Rick Campbell, it might have been very short. Yeah, he's
man, a few words.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So now, like, what's going through your head? Like, are you like, I got to get to Ottawa now? Like, are you thinking pack the bags? Like, where are you going?
I was like, here we go. Where do I start? Like, who do I contact? So I've actually started talking to my family and telling them, and then I just started trying to get the schedule and see what's happening in the next couple, I think, weeks. I think the draft it's later. Yeah, it's May. And I think training camp did start later, so it was like in 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah.
Okay, so
I'm
now
just like, hey, I had to get ready. I had to go down there and everything. How am I going to get down there? So obviously they flew you down there and did everything for you, which I also didn't know. I thought they were just going to take me to Subway, so yeah. That would have been nice.
You get taken out to Joey's the first night there, and you're just like, "What? Wait, where's the sandwich?"
Yeah, seriously, yeah. Joey's wasn't a thing back then. Nothing was actually there. It was a boneyard back then. Like none of the brick was there, and nothing was up.
Fair enough. Well,
for the first little bit, like all I knew was Carleton.
Okay.
Carleton campus. That's all I knew.
I guess that's probably where a few training camps were, practices, stuff like that. And
yeah, the first 2 training camps were in Carleton. Yeah, okay. We stayed in the dorms and everything.
Yeah, that's we don't need to give too much credit to that institution. Now, come on.
Yeah, I know. Trash.
I'm kidding, of course. I love the the Ravens that I've interacted. Justin Howell, Nate Bahar, great dudes.
Yeah, yeah. I remember I met Nate Bahar. He was actually the equipment. He was helping the equipment guy. Actually, okay. He was helping RJ. Yeah, so that's why I first met him.
That's pretty funny.
He was there helping. Yeah, and then I remember 2 years ago when Nate was on the Red Blacks. I was like, wow, full circle, eh? He's like, no kidding. No.
Do you feel old at that moment? Like, are you like, oh, I'm getting up there?
Kinda. I still feel young, but at the same time, I'm like, wow, yeah, I'm one of the older guys,
Yeah. Well, I guess it's got to be strange because you're seeing guys now retire who are like the same age or even came into the league after you.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of weird seeing that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
It's weird now because guys are retiring obviously because of the whole COVID situation. I know they're getting better job or like jobs, careers, which is smart. If I had a career, I would if I had a career that I was gonna continue for 30, 40 years, I would probably take it right now. It's like, are you gonna play in the CFL for 2 or 3 more years and have this opportunity go out the window? So it's different for everyone. Every situation is different.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely can't understand trying to navigate, retiring from a sport that you love so much just because there's something uncontrollable going on, right? With
Exactly.
that and trying to balance between, okay, do I want to just settle it down? Because I've had that conversation with like, a few hockey players and stuff like that. And even, pro football guys where it's just like, oh, like, what do I want to prolong my education for, a chance at like maybe an ECHL or an AHL contract. And then I get cut after 2 years and now I'm 24, 25 starting my undergrad kind of thing. Right.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
It's definitely another aspect to it that definitely doesn't get talked about too much. But so when you first get to Ottawa, because funny enough, I actually just automatically assumed that Joey's was there because my first year in Ottawa was funny enough when you guys won the Grey Cup. So it was a great year
Okay.
in the city.
Oh,
By the
it's
way,
awesome.
thank you for the nice introduction, the very entertaining introduction to the city.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, when you start getting within the flow of the Red Blacks, and it's like you when you start at university, you're redshirt and you don't get to play. But I mean, 2014, your rookie season,
Yep.
11 games, right?
I was fortunate to play more than half the season. It's getting cold out here in Ottawa. God. And yeah, same thing as university. Like my confidence just grew from there. That's how it started. CFL career.
Now, you've also like accumulated a lot of games over your time since you've been in the league. Like there definitely has been some obviously injuries just kind of come with the position, and you have had to miss some games, but for the most part, like you do get to just keep that like you're in the lineup, which is one of the most important things. Like what do you think really plays into that?
Just preparation, mentally, physically. I like to stay on top of my health and fitness, I would say. Just recovery also. I think that plays a huge part in longevity of a CFL player. I think you just have to practice like a pro. I like to eat like a pro. I like to train like a pro. So I think that has a lot of, how I've played so many games in my career.
And now the Grey Cup, how's it feel to, be a Grey Cup champion and, just kind of go through the whole ride and be with a group of guys and get to your end goal?
Yeah, I've never won an actual championship in any sport, so that was pretty amazing. It was tough because that year I was hurt for most of the season. Like right away, first preseason game, tore my bicep. Had surgery the next day, and then the whole time I was just like trying to get back. Then I actually did, and then they told me, they're like, "Yeah, you're not going to play the rest of the season." And I'm like, "Wow, this sucks." Like I just felt like crying there. I'm like, really? Like I put so much time and effort into the off season, and to have that, like that really sucks. And then I came back, played 2 games. Second game, I broke my thumb second quarter, and I knew it was broken. I went in at halftime, and I'm like, my thumb's broken. Like they're like, oh no, it's fine. So they tape my thumb up, and I'm like, seriously, like my thumb is killing me. And they're like, no, it's not broken. Like you just bruised it. So I played the rest of the game, and then after it, they took an X-ray. They're like, you did break it, and I'm like, I know I did. Like, are you kidding me? So, and then I was out for the rest of the year, and then we went to the Grey Cup. Sucked because I didn't play in it. It was hard to watch everyone. I celebrated, but I didn't celebrate as much as I wanted to because you don't have the same feeling. You're not on the field. You didn't play that game, so that was the only crappy part of that whole season game. So
yeah, I guess. Well, because I always look at it as like if you contribute to the team. I mean, you're a part of that group, right? It doesn't matter, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. You know, people tell me that, and like, oh, I know.
But yeah, 100%. You want to be there. They're definitely just that desire to always just be on the field with your brothers, kind of thing, right?
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
But now,
Yeah, I definitely missed that for sure.
but the thing with the broken thumb, like obviously, it's kind of I when you say that, and like I just think of this story that my mom used to tell me. So apparently, she took me sledding one day when I was like 3 years old, right? And she accidentally squat my thumb in the van door. And this is the one and only
Okay.
time that I've ever broken a thumb. And apparently, she just thought I was kind of throwing like a temper tantrum, just crying the whole day. And turns out that was actually like she just thought I was being an ungrateful toddler and wasn't enjoying the snow and just being hard to like put up with. And
She's probably like, "We're boy, no, stop." You're like, "Mom, my thumb!" Probably just screaming, but yeah, it's thanks,
so,
Ma.
yeah, hey, I'm just trying to relate to you. I'm just like, hey, like I know what it's like to break a thumb and nobody believe that.
I know it's hard. It's very hard. I knew it too, and I'm like, my thumb is broken. Like, no, it's not. I'm like, oh, okay. What am I gonna not play the rest of the game? So I have a bruised thumb. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll play the rest of the game.
Because
It sucks.
you just know that's what the commentators are going to rip me. Oh well, Nigel's out of a reported bruised thumb.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it sucks when you know something's wrong and someone does not believe you.
Mm-hmm.
You know your body. Like I know my body. You know your body well. So when something's wrong, you know it's wrong.
Now, is there any bit of like fear of judgment when you're making those decisions? Like you said, like you do you
Sometimes I would say so. Like, oh, this guy can't play because this reason. I feel like sometimes I've been on the other end. Like, come on, like he can't play, but something's actually wrong. And after it, I'm like, wow, I feel bad. I think there's a lot of judgment and people, saying, why can't he play? Why can't he do this? But when you know, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's so many different aspects that go into it, right? Because some guys, maybe it's just something that is going to only have them play at 80% in terms of physical, but there's a mental aspect where it's like, oh, if I can't play at 100%, I'm not going to put up the same kind of tape. I'm not going to put up the same kind of numbers, right? That I would.
Exactly.
And maybe I hinder myself in the future, right? Like there's so another level to it all too, right?
Yeah, especially in the CFL too. You don't want to not play, and then you have the front office, talking about it, and oh, he can't play, blah 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 blah. So a lot of guys do push through that, and I think it's a bad thing, especially with concussions and all that. A lot of guys do play through it because they do have bonuses or play time, or their contracts coming up to an end, and they do want to play through it. And yeah, it's probably not the best decision sometimes.
Yeah, I find concussions too. It's one of those things that are just like almost so sneaky, right? Like you feel okay, but then when you really get into the activity, like I've had like 3, I'll say, that are like kind of like 3 that are documented. Who knows, kind of maybe any more if there is to that,
Yeah.
right? But
yeah, I've had one diagnosed concussion, which was the last game I actually played in, and who knows how many other smaller ones I had, but the one concussion I did have, it was absolutely awful. Like at the time, I still played the rest of the game, but then a couple days later, like I could not believe this headache I had. I could not look at screens. I was like, wow, like this is an actual thing. I remember a guy saying, "Oh, I can't look at lights. I can't do this, like that." I'm like, really? Like I would never experience that. And then when I did experience a concussion, it was awful.
yeah,
Like terrible. I remember one time I felt like, okay, this is like 3 weeks after the concussion. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to the superstore and grab some food. I walked into this place and grocery stores are they're very light because they're lights. And I just walked in and just like instant headache, and I'm like, oh my god, like a migraine headache, and I had to get out of there. It was the worst pain ever. I had to go home and just lay there in a dark room. Jeez, concussions are no joke for sure.
They're definitely not, and I want to get your take on this too, because like sometimes like I do worry about long-term effects, and I'm even just kind of in my spare time right now I'm boxing, right? So for the most part there's
Yeah.
A little bit of head contact every now and then when it's like we get into the sparring sessions, right, and stuff. A couple hits to the head, but obviously you're wearing headgear and stuff, but you're still hitting the head, right? And
Yeah, exactly. Especially repetitive hitting, not a good thing for sure.
And so I've had some moments where, like even today, actually, I was just talking, and then all of a sudden, like both of my ears start ringing, and it's just this like loud ring in my ears, and I'm half like in my head, I'm like, man, like, is this because of like just some of the head contacts that I've put my head through, or am I just like this was just a random occurrence? Like, do you similar kind of thing, or?
Yeah, similar actually. Like randomly, I'll get. Sorry, my phone's gonna die, but I'm gonna try to plug it in. But randomly, yeah, I'll get some ringing in my ear, and I'm like, "What was that?" Like that's not good. And yeah, I should probably be more careful. But comes to the game, I guess.
Well, I've seen too, though. Like even I was listening to this thing. Man, I really can't remember what it was, but and I'm also kind of paraphrasing, but I think more or less the context was that people who ride jet skis all the time, like in the summer, have apparently also like there's some study that show that they also have some forms of like CTE and like uh, that kind of trauma from just like I guess when they're riding the waves, like it's just kind of constant like bobbing of the head.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah, so it's like it's one of those things where I'm always just like, okay, I want to be
Is that is that
careful.
is that from hitting every wave and their brains are going back and forth, or
Yeah, like what's the threshold of like the contact to my head? Like, if I'm getting tapped, like if I'm like you know just like there's been some times where I've just been like full on like kind of clocked right in the jaw, right, and then there's been other times I've been playing softball and I'm like rounding second base and in a league where you don't have to wear helmets, and then all of a sudden I got a ball right to the back of the head, right, like
yeah.
and even it's another thing too. We were talking a lot about soccer, and apparently there's another study about uh, they don't want kids up until like 15 or 16, something like that, like heading the ball, because apparently like there's soccer players getting concussions from making that contact to the ball, right? So now I'm like, man, like how many repetitive movements that I maybe did even throughout high school. So like I'm like, okay, like yeah, I got my bell rung, like I saw stars, and like I had massive headache. I had a massive headache for a few months there, where I'm like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
this is a concussion. But now I'm like, okay, also like I was I was known for getting my head on the ball in soccer, right? Like I never backed down from like a battle in the air kind of thing, right? And
Yeah.
I constantly used my head there. So I'm like, man, like how much damage did I do there, right?
No, exactly. Like they say that soccer players have the most concussions in any sport. It's because that constant they're hitting the ball. And then when the two players do go to try to hit the ball, they always hit each other's heads and all that. So I find it interesting that soccer is the highest concussion rate.
And now you're also in a position too, like, sometimes if a wide receiver gets a concussion or like a DB, like it's that big bang, right? Like that massive contact, like two guys running downfield and just colliding. But you look at offensive linemen and defensive linemen, and like it's kind of the constant banging of the head, right?
Exactly.
How are you protecting your head as much as
Ducking,
you
I would
can?
say. Yeah, you can't really. It's very hard. Sometimes I get punched in the face like 5 times of practice. I'm like, come on. Like I'm sick of getting punched in the face by these guys. But it is that constant, just because there is a big car crash when those huge hits, but then there's small car crashes over and over and over and over and over. Just
Mhm.
like you're saying the jet skier, it's over those waves, boom, 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 boom. And I think that does have a huge effect on your brain. And yeah, it's hard to get away from that for sure. Like I said, like duck, try to not get hit in the head, use your hands.
Yeah.
Other than that, yeah, it is hard, in the trenches, they say, not to try to not get hit in the face all the time. But it is like a constant small car crashes over and over and over.
So with myself, like even like boxing's been a big part of just how I've been keeping busy throughout these times, and it's something that I've enjoyed doing, right? Like it's one of those things. It's not like I've always been a team sport kind of guy growing up, and obviously it's a lot harder to get together and play a game of hockey. But I mean, if I want to get in a good sparring session or something like that, I mean, it's just going to the class and seeing who's there and who's ready, right? But some of the times it's like, oh, like man, like am I like I'm enjoying this, so I'm like, oh, I don't want to worry about the long-term effects, and I almost
exactly. It's hard,
Yeah. Like, what's kind of your thought process through all that? Because like sometimes I'm like, if I have a headache, I'm constantly like questioning myself, and I'm an overthinker naturally, so I'm like, man, like,
right.
Did I get my bell wrong? Like, did that affect me more than what I'm thinking? Like, or did I just not get enough sleep, or I'm not hydrated enough? And
yeah, there's so many variables, before I was like okay, that sucks, but now I'm thinking long term for sure. My career after, especially now that I have a child, and I'm like, I don't want to be that guy. Like forgetting all these things. Forgetting what he did the other month or milestones and all that stuff. But it's definitely changed that since I have a child now. I'm very aware of that, and if I do have a contact with someone or collision, I'm gonna actually I'll have a different judgment if I want to go back and play or not.
Yeah, well, I think that's also just a big life moment too. By the way, I mean congratulations. I think, man, it's been so long. I feel like the last time I saw you, like, was he just born, or was it even before that?
Probably before that, yeah. It's crazy because like a bunch of us did have children, 2019, 2020, and we haven't seen anyone since. Like now we have like almost 2-year-olds. It's pretty wild. Like my son is just like an absolute maniac right now, just like nonstop. Like I'm like, just like fueling off coffee. It's crazy.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, like it is kind of ridiculous because I mean, for the most part, like you guys are like, athletes and stuff like that. Like you were like a regular current. Like I would get to chat with you. Like I would have these like 5-minute chats maybe after the game. Like, at least like maybe 5-6 times a football season, right? And then you run into each other in the off season and stuff like that. And now it's like, oh hey, it's 2021. The season ended back in 2019, and yeah, right? I have not even talked to Nigel since then. It's wild.
Yeah. It's funny you reached out to me to do this podcast. I was like 100%, like I need something different in my life right now. Like so much repetitive stuff is going on. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I need something else.
Hey, well,
so it was nice you reached out to me to do this because yeah, it's been fun.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, you're definitely a guy that I've always wanted to chat with and do a more in-depth one because, like I said, I love the fact that Ontario guy comes to the East Coast, and the fact that you were part of that Grey Cup and all that. But yeah, so I do want to talk about dive more into it. You're a new dad, and you're kind of managing all that too. And yeah, what's the playbook on that?
Like lots going on right now, like especially with COVID. So we did have Luca on December 6th. So we had him Christmas time. Melissa, my fiance, wife, we'll call her, her family, he's here in Ottawa. And they all had the flu. Like it wasn't the COVID, but it was like the gastro flu. So we didn't see anyone. So you have a newborn, you don't see anyone. So we were pretty much in isolation before COVID happened. So we had like zero health. It was just her and I, just like survival. Like we were honestly zombies. Like so tired. Like you take them. Like schedules is crazy. And then Yeah, and then COVID happened, and then we were waiting for the season. I remember my agent, he's like, "You guys will be fine. It was April. This will all blow over." And I'm like, "Okay, we're being optimistic about it." Yeah, sure. And then things obviously took a turn and didn't happen. And then we're like, "All right, okay, what am I going to do right now? What am I going to do?"
When I first decided to come to Newfoundland, it was taking okay, perfect. I can go home, and because I was supposed to, speak on an event talking about like with another guy from TSM. We were going to talk about like sports business for like students and stuff like that, and I was supposed to like photograph an event, and then everything started getting canceled. So I was like, oh, I'll just go to Newfoundland for a little 2-week vacation. I hardly get home.
Yeah.
Schedule just open wide up, and sure enough, it's been 2 years now, basically, since then.
There you go. Yeah.
A little over a year.
Yeah. Wild how things work, so that happened. And then I knew season wasn't going to happen. I just knew it wasn't going to happen. Like, and then sometimes I'd hear some stuff. I'm like, okay, maybe it is. And I'm like, who am I kidding? Like, it's not going to happen. Like, stop. So then I started just like figuring what I was going to do for the rest of the time that football wasn't happening.
So as a new dad, how are you? Like, obviously you haven't, experienced being a dad in like the season format when it's the regular season, but how are you trying to incorporate still the off season? And, obviously there's still field work and weights and stuff that got to be lifted, all that fun stuff. How are you incorporating that now into the schedule?
Nap times. right when he goes nap time, it's like put on my gym stuff right away, because if he wakes up, your workout's disrupted. Like, you're not going to finish it. Like, who am I kidding me? Because sometimes I'm like, put him down, he's sleeping, and I'm like, hey, maybe I'll like do this for a little bit. An hour later, I'm like, okay, I gotta go work out. And then 10 minutes into it, I just, and I'm like, oh, come on, like, wow. And then I don't want to work out later on nighttime when it's 9 o'clock. I'm tired. So it's been interesting. I still figured a way out, but it's been okay. Thank God he's a good sleeper. We did sleep training, so thank goodness for that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. This is something that I hope that I don't have to experience for at least a little while yet. Like, maybe.
Yeah, well, enjoy it. Get some sleep while you can, because after that, it's gonna change for sure.
Yeah, just start. I'll move my alarms back like 10-15 minutes now, and just start accumulating that over time.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. Yeah. But like it's like the best thing ever. Like, he's awesome.
Do you think is he going to be an athlete like Dad? Do you think?
I hope so. He's nonstop moving. He's got huge mitts and huge feet, so he's gonna fill into it for sure.
I guess.
You should see, and his hair too. He's got some hockey hair right now. he's got to cut it though.
I guess first things first is the gymnastics, and then we'll see from there.
Yep, gymnastics, soccer, 100% right away.
Are you going to be the soccer dad with like the orange slices, or are you going to be the coach kind of thing?
I'll probably be the parent with a beer on the sidelines. No, I don't know. I'll probably just stand back and watch and laugh the whole time. That you watch kids when they first play soccer, and it's just like a mosquito. They're just chasing the ball. No one knows what they're doing. They're just like going around in circles. I'll probably just sit there and laugh. But yeah, I'm not going to push him to do any sport. Like, if he wants to do, I don't know, if he wants to dance and he wants to play badminton, like, go ahead. I'm just going to be like my mom and my dad, whatever they want to do, 100%.
Fair enough. Now, you said you were looking for some other activities, to kind of get you through this time period, and firefighting, if I'm not mistaken, has come up on that radar.
Yeah. So I started training the volunteer firefighting in Ottawa. So when was it? September last year? I think it was August. So I was talking to a friend, and he's a volunteer firefighter in Orleans. And he's like, yeah, if you're looking into firefighting, like, you should do this. And I said, I am. So he's like, 100% do this. He's like, the application's like the deadline's tomorrow or whatever, or today. And I'm like, oh my God. So I remember my parents were here in Ottawa, and I'm like, I'm sorry, like I had to go run around and print off my application, my resume, do all this stuff. So I was running around. My parents were here. I felt bad, but at the same time, like they wanted to see my son. First time they saw him. And I went there. I drove to bars, knocked on the door, like no one's answering. I'm like, okay, like what's going on? So I'm like, I dropped the application in the mailbox. I'm leaving, and all of a sudden this guy comes out, and he's the chief. I didn't know at the time, and I introduced myself, told him who I was and everything, and he's like, oh, okay, just chat with them, and then I got a call from them like 2 weeks later, and they're like, yeah, like you have an interview for the whole process. And I said, all right. So we did the interview, Zoom, obviously, because COVID. And I got accepted in that. And then it's called the CPAT. So it was the physical. I'm like, okay, this is where I shine. So did that, like absolutely crushed it. I don't know, I was like so nervous. It felt like the first game of the season because I haven't done anything physical and so like that, everyone watching. And there was only like 5 people watching, or 5 or 10. So nervous. I'm like, what am I nervous for? Did that, and then yeah, got accepted into the volunteer firefighter training. So I've been doing that for the last 8 months. So it's been absolutely unreal.
Now, the physical, is it the volunteer firefighter versus the CFL athlete physicals? Which one's harder?
They're so different.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. We'll say the volunteer firefighting stuff. So it's been a little bit since I've been doing that kind of physical stuff with people watching for sure.
Yeah, no. And I got to ask now, like, why? Because here's the thing. You are actually not the first Thunder Bay athlete on this podcast to say that he's going to do firefighting in some capacity. You're number 2. So, like, what's going on with, Thunder Bay natives just wanting to be?
I don't know. Something in the water, I guess. I don't know. Who was the other one?
Connor Sills, Ottawa Gigi.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I think he actually went to St. Pat's, same high school.
Yeah, I think
pretty
so.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we've had a few Thunder Bay guys actually. Now I think, but Todd Skirbing was also on this podcast as well.
Oh, okay, hockey player, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my uncle was a firefighter, and I remember he gave me one of his firefighter T-shirts. I'm like, oh, you know what? I think it's hilarious. It's like it's right here. So he gave me this. He actually gave me this, and I'm like, oh, this is awesome. It's funny how it's right here. So this is the Thunder Bay Fire Rescue. TBF. And he gave me this. Yeah. Maybe it's made up or something, but he gave me that. And I'm like, huh. So I started thinking into it. And then when I lived my 3rd year in Ottawa, I lived by Elgin Street on Queen Elizabeth.
Yep.
And I filled with the application, but because it was considered urban, so I was in the city, I couldn't be a rural volunteer.
Okay.
So I moved out to Orleans last year, and then so they do volunteer firefighting in the rural community. So yeah. And then it's such a team atmosphere. Like you have to trust guys. Like, you have to trust the guy in front of you, backing you to go into a building. Same as the field. Like you have to trust the guy next to you and everything. There's a lot of trust that goes into team sports and to aspects of firefighting.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. And I guess is that more or less how you're taking the learning curve, is just applying what you know from football and just trying to make it work as much as you can there?
Yeah, 100%. I'm a rookie once again. It's weird. I'm like, wow, like I'm sick of being a rookie, but hey, it's fun at the same time. I learned so much stuff in the last year, and I'm just being a sponge once again, just sitting back and just learning as much as I can just to go into every different scenario.
And so do you think that's going to be eventually, I guess, when you decide to retire from the CFL, is that going to be maybe the long-term goal, is to kind of get a full-time, like permanent position as a firefighter?
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. I've considered it, and that's what I want to do for sure.
Okay.
It has kind of worked out because the trainings are on the weekends. Usually I would be playing football, but because COVID happened, I'm just controlling what I can control. And yeah, I'm just doing the trainings on the weekends and at nighttime. And yeah, it worked out perfectly.
Now, Nigel, I want to thank you for your time. I mean, that's everything and more that I had for you. This is actually the part of the show where I just hand the show over to you. So it's your show. You can chat about whatever you want, life lesson, childhood story. I mean, it's really, it's all up to you.
I honestly don't have much to say. Yeah, the last couple of years, last year, like I said before, like I just controlled what I could control. I know COVID took a lot of things away from people, but at the same time, something did come from it. I was blessed, have a child to keep me occupied, and a door did close with football, and obviously, hopefully, it does open up and we play this year. But at the same time, my post career, it opened a new door to it. So something positive came from it for sure.
Yeah, well, I think always trying to look for the positives in scenarios is probably the best way to go about it.
100%.
Hey, well, man, I want to thank you again for your time. It's been a blast catching up, and yeah, I can't wait to see you back on the field doing your thing. And I mean, hey, if that doesn't happen, I can't wait to see you, running in and stopping fires too. Like I'm excited for
Appreciate having me.
Hey, and thank you to the guests for listening this week. Another episode of Greels Reels done. Do me a favor, if you enjoyed this episode, share with a friend, tell a friend, leave us a review, all that good stuff. Again, what an incredible episode with Nigel. We'll see you next week. In the meantime, stay best kind.